Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Pour some sugar on me.
Wait a second. Are you starting this episode by singing?
No.
Isn't there a rule you made with me about singing?
No, I made a rule that you can't sing. I can sing. The rule is you can't sing. My singing's like melodic. It's angelic. People have actually written in and been like, can you sing more on that podcast? Let me give it to you. Pour some sugar on me.
You know what? Wait, if you're singing, I'm going to sing mine. Ew, gross. I'm going to say, this is the song in my head.
No.
Good morning, good morning.
That's not even a song.
It's great to stay up late. Good morning.
I don't even know what that is. Stop. It hurt my ears. It hurt my soul. I'm gonna wash it now with some. Pour some sugar on me.
It's from Singing in the Rain.
I feel like if I were to go back in time, I would be a singer myself.
Oh, like what? You're that one kind of like a Nickelback or something?
Yeah.
Nickel Creek? Which one is it? Nickelback?
Nickelback. The greatest band of all time.
Oh, God. We're going to get so much hate mail. We're going to get so much hate mail.
It's called a little bit of sarcasm, people. But yeah, I listen to Nickel Creek. That's actually a great band.
Why do they have the same name, basically? For dyslexic people, that's just a mess.
I don't know, but Nickel Creek, if I was Nickel Creek, I'd be like, we need to change this name. We don't want anyone to associate us with Chad Kroger. But there were some really good songs. And all you out there, this is the last I'll say about this, but so many of you that grew up in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, like, you know, you were a teenager, early 20s in that time. You secretly love Nickelback. You attended one of the concerts. You know you did, because they had packed out concerts. They didn't make millions and millions and millions of dollars because they suck so bad that no one wanted to listen to them. So
that's
don't
good.
judge.
Spoken as a true fan.
Yeah. Look at this photograph. I don't know. I just love those songs. It's a little shameful to talk about. Okay. So we're going to talk about something fun today.
Ooh.
We're going to talk about the 12 green lights in relationships. So there goes instead of stops. Because everyone's like, what are the red flags? But what about green lights? And today we're going to green light number 1, if they love Nickelback. They're like, you lost me.
Nope.
Can't trust a damn word you're saying moving forward.
Yeah. So I think it's helpful looking for healthy things for people in relationships. And I didn't realize that most people only look at red flags.
They look at the don'ts instead of the do's.
And
what do I do?
What do I want? I think it's really important to actually have some core values for the relationships. Now, I know that I don't always choose relationships. Sometimes they just kind of happen.
Right.
But there are lots of things that I choose where when I see behavior, I choose, you're not going to be closer to me than a level that feels safe to have this behavior at.
And we're talking about a variation of relationships. We're both this goes for both friendship and dating relationships.
Yeah. Or even parents, in-laws. All those people. Well, because you get to choose how close you let them be.
Like the green light of how close I'm going to let them in.
Yeah, like the green light is I'm letting you in closer to me.
But for all you singles out there, listen up closely. This is a huge episode for you right now.
Absolutely.
Because we get so many people who email us in and they're like, I don't know how to do this right. What am I supposed to look for? So this is your list. And now you can start sizing up everyone you meet. You can start getting really judgy.
Judge them.
Yeah. You're not very self-reflective.
You're not good enough.
Yeah, I ain't dating you. But here's the other thing. In these green lights in relationships, this is a great moment to look at your own self and be like, am I a green light? Am I a date-worthy green light?
Yeah. Am I a friend-worthy green light?
Yes. And I think that if you're not scoring at least 50% on this, I will just tell you you're a failure at life. You should rethink everything you've ever done altogether and hit the reset button and start over.
No, but it does mean this is a great time to grow.
Yes, it does.
It does mean that. Okay. I do want to just set this up because sometimes when you hear things like this, people become like legalistic about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So then they start obsessing and they go through all of their friends and they create a checklist and they're like, wait, do all of my friends do all of this all of the time?
It's time to reassess everything.
Yeah. Very analytical, judgy, fearful. I'm scared. So we're not actually trying to get you to overanalyze.
Right.
We're not trying to get you to now become someone that people have to jump through hoops to do.
Yeah.
Because even some of the things we'll say can show up in so many different ways that you can't actually know right off the bat if somebody is all these things. So what we're just saying is these are things when you notice somebody doing them, you can think, oh, that is a person I'd like to get
Oh, that's a great value. I really enjoy that.
Yep.
I want to know more about that person.
Okay, so let's start with number one, Justin.
So number one, we're going to start with self type deals. So we're going to talk about the idea of self-care because self-care
is not number one.
It's self-reflective.
I was like, where are you going with
I
this?
totally jumped there.
Yes.
You guys ignore that self-care is on the list.
It's not
We're
there.
going to surprise you with it later, okay?
It's gone.
But self-reflective, like the awareness. Someone.
Wait, I love that I just got you to mirror me, even though you didn't. I go, and you didn't do.
I wasn't very self-reflective or self-aware. There was a. So go ahead.
Okay.
Jump more into self-reflection.
Self-awareness is the ability to like have some kind of knowledge of how you affect people, how you're showing up, how you work and operate, so that if somebody, maybe you're an over talker, self-awareness would be, oh, I can notice when people start to glaze over.
What? I think that also not only we're pairing self-awareness with self-reflectiveness.
Yeah.
And they go hand in hand as one. They're both kind of similar. But even the reflectiveness about being willing to look inward at self.
Like, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. You're just doing.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like if you have a breakup or a friendship ends, you have two options. You can blame the other person entirely or compartmentalize from the pain and pretend it didn't happen. Or you can actually go on the journey of reflecting to understand what your part in the story is. And you'll notice that often, like if somebody's self-reflective in how they process life. Yeah.
And we're going to get into a little bit deeper that will a few deeper things that will help you understand even that. So let's talk about cares about others, because we have self-reflective. They're first going to look internally at self, and then they're going to...
Here's another way you can notice that. I'm so sorry. My brain just went poof, and I know you were in the middle of talking, and I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Thank you.
Abby, take the wheel. Take it from my hands.
I was just thinking self-reflective could be like, oh, I had this conversation with someone the other day and it made me think about this thing inside of me, or I read this book and it made me process this thing about my family. Or so it's the ability to take what's happening in the world around you and process who you are and who you're becoming and how it relates and affects you. And so what it is it's just an awareness of that you are a person and learning who that person is as you go throughout the different stages and ages of life.
So as someone has this, what ends up happening a lot of times is that they then begin to develop the capacity for compassion and empathy. So really the idea that they care about others. Really like there are some people also...
So you're saying the second one?
The second one is cares about others, or empathy is even another way to put it. Now, we can do a lot of things that look as though we care about others, but we don't necessarily have empathy developed. We just kind of have programming of this is a social niceties that you're supposed to do.
How are you?
Oh, how are you?
Good. Okay, bye.
I'll totally go to...
I'm going to go tell everybody.
I will totally help you this weekend move your house. Oh, he must really care. No, it's just because he can't say no.
Right.
But true care about others is displayed inside of empathy. The ability for me to look into someone else's conditions and go, I can totally see how you'd get there. It literally, like, when I hear someone be very judgmental, like, I can't believe they would do that. I can't believe that.
Can you believe she would wear that?
How would they get there?
Say that? It's so stupid.
Why would they act that way? I can't believe they posted that on social media. It lacks any sense of empathy for another human's conditions and why they're expressing themselves the way they are.
Yeah. Now, granted, when somebody's venting, they're not going to have empathy, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's a bad, like, because if you get me in a venting moment, I'll be like, the whole world is crazy. But then when I am done with the process, I can see why the pain is driving them. And
it's about the concept of lifestyle. You can't take a picture snapshot moment of someone's life and decide this is who they are.
Right.
It's about, I'm just watching. I saw them be very empathetic in that moment. And then I saw them do it again. And I saw them like multiple times. It seemed like it was part of their lifestyle. Every time I've interacted with them, I've seen empathy be expressed through their interactions.
Yeah. It's really good.
And so we're now going to get to the third one, which is self-care.
What? I didn't see that one coming.
Well, go ahead and tell me about some self-care there, Ellie.
Well, I think when you see that self-care can be so many different things. I think right now in culture, people think self-care is like going to the spa, buying yourself chocolate. I don't necessarily.
Treat yourself.
Yeah. I think self-care is knowing who you are and knowing what you need. So like, I need a night alone to journal so that I can be connected to myself, so that then I can be a better human with you. Or I need to go for a walk because exercise helps me feel powerful and releases endorphins. Or I need to have this conversation with somebody because we're disconnected right now. It's this constant, like, I can know what I need and I know how to be able to meet those needs. And people often are like, I need a vacation. Everybody needs things they're out of control. I need a vacation. I need a husband.
Something outside of me.
Yes.
And self-care really is like an internal job in so many ways.
Yeah. But it's the awareness of, if I just give, and I never have boundaries and I don't know who I am, eventually I'll snap, be mean, passive aggressive, break down, or become narcissistic. So self-care keeps a healthy balance. So even I think part of self-care is dealing with your emotions, having people you can process. Like, I know for me, self-care looks like, I need to go process this thing emotionally. So I'm going to call one of my friends.
Yes.
I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to let down my guard. I'm going to ask for help. Like, there's been lots of times in being sick, I had to ask for help. Like, could you come help me with this thing in the house?
Totally.
So I have needs and I am going on the journey of getting them met.
Yeah, I think that's, again, why we put self-reflective at the beginning, because someone who's self-reflective has that awareness to know what will equal self-care inside of their life, which is super beneficial. Now, there's something that I want to say, because people will be like, yeah, but if you do all this self-care, you become narcissistic and selfish. No, like, if you're actually doing self-care in a healthy way, the result is being filled up internally. You'll have an abundance and you'll have great capacity to be sacrificial without destroying everyone around you.
It's so true. It's so true. Because lots of times there's like two extremes. People give, and then they snap. They're mad because like, you don't give back, or they have a breakdown, or they become completely, like, then it becomes completely about them.
Yep.
Because they overgave. Or you have these people that are like, so much, I got to meet my needs. When I see somebody who is always trying to meet their needs, I know that they're never actually getting to the real need.
Yep.
They're like doing a superficial fill for something that is a deep thing that they actually need. So maybe it's like, well, I go to the spa and I go shopping 5 times a week for self-care. But actually what your soul is needing is love and compassion, or to feel like you're not alone. And so lots of people, if they're not self-aware, that's why we put it first, they will try to do self-care in a way that never actually fills them.
Yes, absolutely.
And then it does become narcissistic.
Yeah. So I want to talk about self-responsibility or self-management. So this is a huge green light. When you see someone that has a capacity to manage their emotions and not blame, they're managing, like, okay, for instance, we talk about the word blame. So when I see someone who's like, it's their fault and they did this, and if this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have done this. There's no self-management involved.
Right.
Because they're not actually taking into account ownership inside of their life. How am I affecting the world? How did I create this situation? What could I do differently in the way that I participate in life? So someone who is operating out of self-responsibility is actually a very powerful person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things I thought is, even in life, like, people who have self-responsibility are like, okay, I have a goal. I'm going to run after it.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to grow this skill. I'm going to learn how to do this. Part of self-management, I think, is also initiating things and following through.
Initiate and follow through. Follow through is a great word on responsibility.
So, like, I'm going to engage this process, and I'm going to go all the way through it.
Right.
And this is one of the ways you build self-confidence, is by choosing to follow through on things.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean you need to suffer in order to do, like, needlessly, but there is sometimes, like, with grit of like, okay, no, I'm going to do this thing that I committed to. Oh, you know what? I'm committed to getting our finances out of debt. You know what? That's going to be hard. That's not going to feel fun, but I'm going to spend the next 3 years. I have this one client who was like, I'm going to commit to getting myself out of debt. She got an app for it. She budgeted, and she is doing it.
Come on.
And, like, it's amazing to watch her do it. I feel so proud of her, but as I'm watching it, I can see it's building her self-value and worth, but it's also, she's taking ownership, saying, I want to be driving my finances.
I think that finances is a really good spot to look at.
Yeah.
Like, that says something about self-responsibility.
Yeah.
Or self-management. Like, are people's finances in order? When they're not, it's not a judgment.
No.
But it is like,
because when you met me,
you didn't.
My finances were a mess.
They were, and you didn't have a lot of self-responsibility in certain areas.
Nope.
There wasn't a huge green light.
Nope.
But inside of it, that is one area that we can look at and go, well, if they're not managing their finances, do they feel like they're powerful or managing themselves in their other areas of their lives?
Yeah.
And there can be specific areas, depending on our childhood triggers, where it's like, I can manage all of my life over here, but when it comes to this one thing, I have this emotional hurdle and brokenness from my childhood family. That's again why we were talking about lifestyle instead of just moments.
Yes.
But there are little blaring lifestyle things, potential lifestyle things that you go, all their money is not in order. They're like, as far as managing themselves, they're chronically in debt and stuff. Is this the rest of their life, or is this just an area? Because again, we don't want this to become something that's this highly judgmental thing, these green lights, but they just begin giving you an idea.
And I think, like, so this is a great example to talk through. I was not responsible in finances.
Right.
But here's what I will say. I was pursuing figuring out how to be.
And there's a key.
And so that's the self-management, which was like, I owned that I'm not doing well with finances. I owned that was a problem. And then I had to go on a journey, because I had to work through a lot of issues from my childhood about finances, because that got in the way. It wasn't just that I didn't want to be responsible.
Yeah.
It was that I had all of these triggers that got in the way of responsibility. But there were other areas that I was owning my life and running after things. And so I am reiterating what you said, because I don't want people to use this podcast as ammo to judge people. And because there's no judgment on people in debt. We're not judging you. We're actually...
There's an enormous amount of people in America in debt.
Yeah. And I've been in debt so much. So all we're saying is the engaging of life in areas. And even, some ownership with finances could be like, I know that I got myself here and I need help to get out. I don't know how to get out.
Yep.
So for me, growing up with my parents, ownership would have looked like getting help.
Right.
Just saying ownership was I don't
Self-management,
know, which is
ownership.
self-awareness
Yep.
and getting your needs met, which is I don't know how to do this with finances.
Right.
So I'm going to actually pursue help and not just drown in it.
Yep. And so you can take it in either financial arenas or other arenas. Like, where are they showing up trying?
Yes.
I think that is a good simple word. Do I see this individual trying in any area that feels weak to them or difficult to them, that they're putting effort in
to push through?
That is a huge green light that says, oh, that's awesome. So what's another one?
Okay. Works through conflict.
Okay, this is the biggest green light on the face of the planet.
You see somebody who does this, you snatch them.
Yep, snatch them up like an alien. You just hook them and you probe them. What? Why? Why, Abby? Why is people
Because you're going to have conflict with whoever you're around the rest of your life.
Conflict is a part of the human condition. You cannot avoid it. I had a client the other day that's just like, I don't know. Can't we just create a lifestyle where there isn't conflict? It's not possible.
It isn't possible.
So someone who...
Sadly, for all those nines out there,
yeah,
they're devastated.
You are not going to survive the human race. You nines. Conflict is so woven into the reality of human existence because we are all different.
Yes.
We all come from different cultures.
With different definitions of what things mean and what core values should be.
So when you have someone that's, we're not talking about creating a lifestyle of conflict in the sense of, they're always dramatic. All they have is conflict in their life. But no, people who seem to have the ability to face things head on and be like, oh, there's a problem here. We should dialogue about this. And they're very easily like, oh, what's going on? Let's talk.
Now, what we don't mean are those people that are over conflict hungry, where everywhere they go, they're like, no, we need to talk about this. You're being... So like when we're talking about conflict, we're not saying just people who are willing to do it, because lots of people are willing to do it and are crazy in it. But so the goal would be that people are aware that conflict is a part of humanity.
Yeah.
And want to work through it with people.
And you'll just watch simple things like you'll generally have problems that arise in friendship circles or something, and you can see they're like, yeah, I don't know, John did this thing. I really feel like I need to talk to him about it because it feels like it caused a bigger mess. I'd like to get it cleaned up.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to go try and figure out what was going on with him on his end and see if we can't talk about it. You know, very, as a matter of fact, it's just part of their lifestyle. It's a huge green light if you have someone that does that, because what they're doing is they're inviting connection.
Yes.
They're saying, I want to build deeper connection and deeper relationships because I am not allowing fear to drive my life. People who are conflict avoiders are driven by fear ultimately at the core of them. So all you nines, I love you so much, but like fear is driving you.
Now, I was thinking about this as we were talking, and I was like, people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I do that. And I was thinking, I have so much compassion because most of the time when we don't do healthy behavior, it's because pain exists underneath.
Absolutely.
And so people who are scared of conflict often have a reason to be scared of conflict from their childhood. And so it's not just that they aren't good people who aren't doing life right. It's that there's actually terror of how they're going to be hurt.
Well, let me jump in here. I'm going to throw Justin under the bus. So up into 25 and my
I'll
25
drive that bus. I'm ready.
So why is it always a bus running people over? Why isn't it a giant truck or something?
Well, a bus, you know, for sure is going to kill them because there's like 20 wheels.
Nope, there's 4 on buses.
Oh, I guess you're talking about small buses.
Big buses have 4, maybe 6 wheels. Maybe there's a dually.
I'm going to go look. Excuse me, bus driver, I need to count your wheels.
So for instance, at 25 years old, I got into marriage with you. I came in absolutely petrified of conflict. Every time that I rose up to have some form of conflict with anyone, I went into paralyzing fight or flight mode where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to fight this. It's going to turn into an explosion for me, all because of my childhood. So I really did wanted to be a peacekeeper, a peacemaker at all times.
Yeah.
Whatever I could do to ultimately even run over my own feelings. I would just be like, it doesn't matter, Justin, it doesn't matter. Why? Because the cost of conflict equaled some sort of abusive explosion that left me riddled and writhing in pain.
Totally.
And so I just want to acknowledge that. Again, this isn't a judgment, but when someone has found the capacity to form the capacity to live a lifestyle of healthy conflicts management, that's someone that you go, oh, I want that I need to investigate that friend or that boyfriend or girlfriend possibility.
And I think this goes back to what you said, like trying. Are people trying? They may not be masters at conflicts, but are they trying to do it well?
I'm still not a master of it.
What?
I still got to take an adult timeout because I've blown up and I'm like, oh, I got to go.
Maybe an adult timeout means you're a master at it though.
Because I've now learned. Ultimately, the ultimate goal of mastering conflict is that you have the capacity to take an adult time out because you're self-aware enough to know that you are not managing yourself well any longer.
This is why we created the Compassion Project, which is so that you can learn to be self-reflective, learn to care about others and have empathy and validate them, learn how to know what needs are actually going on inside of you and how to meet them in the real way, and then learn how to have compassion. Because I'm like, if you listen to this list without compassion for yourself, you'll just feel shamed.
Or others.
Yeah.
You'll become judgy. Of
others or you. And so if you actually get compassion and understand that there's always reasons why we don't do what we want to do. So I just wanted to say the Compassion Project is out there. It will help you with all of that. That's not why we're doing this, but I noticed a theme. So continue on.
So let's talk about long-standing friendships.
Oh.
Now that's a mixed bag. I mean, like sometimes hard to have long-standing friendships. Yeah. There's a lot of different messes and things. And a lot of times we could go, well, there's a reason for why this happened. Yeah. Our prover can prove why we don't have them. But the reality is that long-standing friendships say that there's a potential for working through conflict management.
That's what it says. It says that you guys haven't given up on each other.
It says potentially. Here's potentially. It potentially says, I've learned how to take ownership for myself. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes
it also says, I'm codependent and can't let go.
So there's a lot of negative connotations that can be inside long-term friendships because there can be long-term friendships that you've held on to way too long and stuff like that. But it again, it is a compass pointing towards the possibility of like, they have some long-term friendships. I wonder how they've had long-term friendships. Why do they have them? Do they ever have conflict in their friendships? Totally. Even especially when it comes to dating and stuff and investigation, like, oh, you have long-term friendships. How have you held up these long-term friendships? You know, if someone says, oh, we just never have any problems, well, then the green light kind of dims out and turns red. But there is something to asking, like, well,
maybe not red, maybe just yellow.
Just yellow. Yellow starts happening. But then you can investigate further and go like, oh, well, so you've never had problems with each other. Right. You've never had any forms of conflict. But a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, well, we have had some problems. We were able to get through these things.
And one of the things that we're talking about this is, do people have grit relationally? Right. Do they have the ability to weather storms with people?
Again, we're not talking about codependency, but the capacity for grit, like I'm willing to fight hard for something.
I'm willing to work through things when they get rough. I'm willing to not just cut and run. That's basically what we're communicating.
Mm-hmm. I knew one person in my friend network years ago that the moment conflict of some sort arose, they immediately cut ties to that entire person, cut them out. You wouldn't get a phone call back, a text message back. They wouldn't say anything to you about what really happened or anything, and you were just confused. And they did that to so many people inside of the friend network, where everyone was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. So, and I see both. There's been lots of relationships that have come and gone in my life, and there's been some that have been longer. And so again, it's not a judgment about, it's more, are you learning how to not cut people out of your life?
Yep.
That's really what we're saying.
It's a really, really great thing. So,
although again, there's some people that you need to let go.
Yes. And maybe
that's part of self-care, which is part of self-awareness.
Maybe we did talk about all the green lights here, and you have a really close friend who didn't hit one of them. And they've been in your life long term.
Yep.
And that's the only one that it actually hit is the long-standing relationship with them. Anyways, let's talk about vulnerability.
It's like real sexy of a quality.
Yeah.
I think for so many
I'm gonna
people.
flex some vulnerability right now.
Oh, wow.
How hot is that?
That's so sexy.
Uh-huh.
Here's the thing about any person. Vulnerability when we're younger is basically what everyone's trying to avoid. In school, like you don't want to be
Prove
vulnerable.
how tough you are.
Prove how strong you are. And there's such a wrong idea in society of what strength is, because vulnerability costs way more than acting put together. Vulnerability costs way more than having everything look great.
Oh, for real.
And so, but whenever I see vulnerability, I know, because people who are vulnerable are getting love in.
Yeah.
Love gets in when you're vulnerable. People who aren't vulnerable are never getting love in. And I always feel like the more loved somebody is, the more love they have to offer. And so when they're vulnerable, they're getting to actually receive, and then they have something that they can give.
And so a couple quick signs of vulnerability. Someone who has, now we're talking about powerful people already in this. All right. So let's have that standard. So we already know that these are capable people owning their life, things like that. And vulnerability comes in and says, yeah, I have capacity, but I'm not a singular self-sustaining entity that can do it all on my own. So vulnerability is, even though I'm strong in these ways, part of my strength is expressed in having need and asking for the help. Yeah. So you watch these people who are like, I don't know how to do this over here. Right. I don't know how to get over this hurdle inside of my heart. I've definitely taken time to investigate. The reason I point this out is someone who needs help. I know people who all they do is lean on other people.
Yes.
They don't have any.
Well, that's not vulnerable then.
That's not vulnerable.
That's a lifestyle where all they do is want other people to fix them, then they're not even being vulnerable in it.
No, because they're not actually risking in life, trying to accomplish on their own. So even vulnerability is expressed through risk. Yeah. Like risk takers who are doing things that normally other people would be scared to do or trying on their own. It's like, wow, that's vulnerable. Not just sharing, but actions.
Yeah. And even like, I know people, it's really vulnerable for them to share with their dreams with somebody. Or it's vulnerable for them to share something they like about themselves with somebody, or their art or their music or there's so many different ways, because vulnerable really means woundable. Yeah. Which means that you've opened yourself up, and you don't want people that are overly vulnerable. Like if somebody meets you in the first day that you talk to them, they are the most, you're going to be like, okay, we need to see.
We had a friend one time who was dating a guy, going on dates with this guy, and this guy, like first couple dates, throws all of his emotions about everything on the table, because I think he's convinced that, I think he's on a journey of vulnerability, trying to figure out what it looks like and stuff, but also convinced that that's what a woman wants. And I was like, this was such an overshare. There was not actually time of relationship and connection to even warrant this. You gave this person way too much access. It just said you didn't have any boundaries.
Totally.
Which, by the way, if you're listening, you're like, just give me the right rules. What does vulnerability look like? And when should I do it and not do it? This, again, it isn't about rules. Yes. It's about investigating these concepts inside of your life and seeing, is that vulnerability over there that they're displaying? Is that a lifestyle?
Yeah.
Or is that, I don't know.
Vulnerability also can look like people who can share about their feelings while they're feeling them.
Yeah, that was one I was going to make point of.
Because a lot of times people just share once they've figured it all out and it's fixed.
And I've had relationships with people where they do exactly that, and they would tell everyone, "Oh, I'm super vulnerable,"
because they say all the things.
They say all the things in retrospect.
Yeah,
like, "Oh, look, I'm telling on myself, but I've got all cleaned up." But that, like you said, that true vulnerability, like I have one friend right now who will come to me in the middle of a problem and just say, today I'm feeling really scared and overwhelmed about this situation. I do not know how to do this. I just want to share it with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's super vulnerable.
The reason vulnerability is a green light is because it enables for intimacy. You can't have intimacy without vulnerability. And so vulnerability creates bonding and connection. I remember this girl telling me if I never needed her, then she'd have nothing to contribute to the relationship. And she's like, I bond when I contribute.
Right.
And so being able to be vulnerable is a beautiful gift that we can give.
I'll add this too. Vulnerability is a key component in healthy conflict, right? Because when you have a relationship with vulnerability, then conflict suddenly becomes a place of connection.
Yeah.
It doesn't become a place of domination because you're going, no, I'm here vulnerably to share an experience with you, to face this conflict that we're having right now in order to hopefully get resolution. But if you don't have the quality of vulnerability inside the context of conflict, that's where you get out of balance.
Well, the other reason you're looking for vulnerability is because if other people are vulnerable, they're going to be open when you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because if they know what it costs to be vulnerable, then they're going to be able to value when you pay that price for vulnerability.
Great.
Okay, the next one I think you should say.
Spirituality. I think spirituality is such a key component in a green light.
A green light.
Why? What I say about singing.
Oh. People who are just listening to this one will think that you're like really dominating.
Yeah, they totally will. Pour some sugar on me. But followed up by that, they'll have a good laugh. Okay. So to me, spirituality is a key component in displaying humility. I'm not talking about religiosity, and I'm not even specifically talking about what faith background you're coming from, but someone who has initiated a journey that says, I know that there is something bigger than me, which means my highest source isn't me. It says that I'm not the biggest thing in my world. It also says that I'm willing to be taught. I'm willing to learn and grow. But when someone is disconnected from spirituality altogether, oftentimes there's not something, they don't believe in something bigger than them that wants to communicate with them, help them, engage them. And that ends up leading to this weird self-sufficiency, right? But I think that there's something, again, self-sufficiency. I'm trying to think of the other word that I use for it. Self-sufficiency, because I think it's great to be sufficient or capable.
Sure.
But when I'm only relying on self, then I really build barriers between me and everyone around me. And then spirituality begins to point towards the possibility that I lean on people. Now, the truth is... Because
you're saying the humility of believing there is someone bigger than me. I am not the biggest person in the world, and I'm not alone at the core fundamental level.
Right. Now, are there a million examples of people who walk in spirituality who are arrogant, judgmental, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But we're looking at the bigger picture of what would be a well-rounded, green-lighted lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a role inside of it.
Okay, so the next one is processes pain and also acknowledges pain. So people who can actually, so if you spend your whole life avoiding pain, so you never actually deal with things, which means you cut people out when there's conflict, you never acknowledge what's going on, you're always, a lot of times it's a very addictive, like I'm avoiding. What that does is when people can't acknowledge pain, they also don't always know how to acknowledge your pain.
Yeah.
Because if they're trying to get out of it themselves, then they're not going to know how to be present and safe with it for you while you're in it.
Yep. And so that becomes a place, especially when someone does not acknowledge pain. There's especially a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy, a lack of sympathy, because they've now said these things don't exist inside of me. They don't exist inside of you. So there's never room to actually be weak in a healthy way, or to be messy in a healthy way. And usually someone who doesn't acknowledge pain operates out of heavy judgment. And they're like, why would you do this? Why would you be that way?
Totally.
You shouldn't feel this way.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Also communicates openly.
Ooh, what does it mean to communicate openly?
I love it. When I see people who are like straightforward and engaging, this is why you loved Amber on Love is Blind. Because you're like, she just says what she means. You know where you stand with people like that.
Yep. One of the things that's most difficult is probably the Southern culture. I
love Southern culture. They just are terrified of me.
One of the most difficult hurdles we'll use. All you people in the South down there now, listen up. I love y'all. But y'all got some problems. God bless your souls. Y'all a bunch of fake people. Here it goes. Say, Justin. There it is. But there's these Southern pleasantries that we will use those as an example.
Well, there's culture rules, and it's not just Southern. There's lots of cultures that have rules
about pleasantries,
about being
but that
nice,
stands out.
But not actually, that's not actually what you mean.
What you really mean. And so what that does when we aren't direct, it creates a space for guessing games.
Yes.
Life becomes this giant guessing game of me trying to be a mind reader to figure out what you really think or feel. And so it actually empowers mistrust.
Totally.
Lifestyle that does not communicate openly creates more room for mistrust, because people then go, they said they would love for me to come over, but I don't know, because we have a culture of not talking openly about it. So I need to try and decipher if they really meant yes or no on that.
Yeah.
And the one, as a side note, a great way to break that is to take people at their word.
Yes.
Purposely. I had one friend that was like super like, yeah, okay, no worries. So I was just like, okay, I know you don't mean that, but I'm not going to overly manage you. So I'm going to keep doing exactly what you say.
Right.
And then they've had a meltdown. Why do you always this? Because you said yes.
Right. Absolutely.
Use your words. I'm not supposed to guess, and I hold them accountable to that.
Mind reading is not ever helpful for relationships.
No,
so it's
really
so
destructive.
Great. And I just want to give you a tip for all those single people out there. They believe that if you have to say what you need, it's unromantic.
Yeah, you should have been able to know.
You should read my mind. That's what they show in TV shows, that the other person. That's not what real relationships are like. In real relationships, you have to be like, I actually need a hug. Justin, I need to verbally process something that's vulnerable. I have to literally tell him it's vulnerable because he can't read my mind.
Exactly.
And I can't punish him. Well, I shouldn't punish him no matter what. But especially if he has no idea that that's even happening.
Right. It's so confusing.
I remember when we got married feeling like, this is so unromantic. Aren't you just supposed to know everything? It's a very victim-y way to live.
Oh, it's totally powerless. It's very living small, not owning your life.
Yeah.
Wanting people to read your mind says, oh, I don't have to ever be proactive and powerful. I don't have to be vulnerable.
I don't have to know myself and use words. I just need you to do it all.
Yeah. So it's super destructive. So anyone who communicates openly, instead of being scared of them and feeling like, oh, that's so brash, they told me exactly what they thought, it should give you a sense of relief.
Like, oh, okay, I know where I stand.
Well, yep, this is exactly what they think. Great.
Yes. I do just want to say this. We're going over a list of a lot of green lights. You don't need every person to have all of these green lights.
No.
I don't know that I have all of my people who have all of these green lights. I wouldn't probably cross-reference all of them, but the goal would be that you're looking every time there's a green light, you're like engaging more and you're noticing not just bad behavior, but you're noticing good behavior.
Yep.
And you're starting to, because the more we look at what we want in life, the more we become that. The more we look at what we don't want in life, the more we become that. So if we're always like, I don't want somebody who is passive aggressive, it's much more easy to aim your life and find those people. When you're like, I want somebody who communicates openly, then you're aimed towards what you want, which is a powerful way to live your life.
Yep. So I hold an awareness inside of me of my red flags.
Yeah.
They're there. It's not that I've denied the reality of those. It's that I've just so built a whole world of my green lights.
Yes.
This is what I do want. Oh my gosh, it's in this person right
see
here.
it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So let's talk about honoring boundaries.
Very good.
So people who are always trying to get us to violate our desire. Like, no, I don't want to do that.
Don't you want to though?
And they keep pushing back, but why not? And where you can never draw a line in the sand.
That's stupid that you don't want to do this. Here's why. You're just being scared. You're just da-da-da-da-da-da.
Those types of people we run from. The people who are like, the people who are like, oh yeah, so you don't want to do that? No. Oh, well, thank you for sharing. Totally. All right. Well, let's see if maybe we can do something else like that.
Yeah. And there's like, you can always have conversations to seek to understand. Oh, help me understand why you don't want to. When me and Justin dated, there were a lot of boundaries that I had that he didn't necessarily understand. So he'd ask me about them and why they were important to me and what they meant. But never once when he was asking, was he trying to bully me or manipulate me? And his stance,
into doing my will.
Yeah. His stance was, your boundaries matter because they matter to you.
Yep.
Even if they're different than mine.
Yep.
And so boundaries are like being around somebody that will honor you in those boundaries is so important.
People who honor boundaries, another reason why there's such a green light is because what they're saying is that they have a value for free will and freedom, which inside of free will is the foundation to all love.
Yes.
All love is based on the capacity to choose. And so someone who honors boundaries is honoring love inside of that.
Very good.
So last one.
Fun.
Pour some sugar on me.
I love that now you're not trying to stop me from singing. You're just going to sing your song over it every time.
Oh, I got that song stuck in my head because you walked in and sang it.
No.
You did.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. You came in and hummed the tune and then you're pour some sugar on me. And I was like, oh.
I don't even remember that.
Well, you know why? Because then it made me flash back to drinking beer at Big Wang's in Los Angeles, California.
There's a place called Big Wang's.
It was a hot spot for us early 20-year-olds, and we'd go there and get pictures every Friday night. And there was these two guys that would always sing that song, and they would walk across the tables in karaoke because it was karaoke night.
Hysterical.
And they'd walk across the tables singing it, and the whole place would be in a riot, just screaming and yelling for it. They were such performers. They're probably famous now. I didn't know who they were, but they probably became famous.
Could be fun.
So speaking of people having fun walking across tables while drinking beer, people who don't, when you can see that they have an ability to engage life playfully, oh my gosh, the type of thriving that creates for any environment when someone does that is off the charts. Yeah.
And something I was thinking is like some of these things you might recognize that you aren't on this list. Like you might be like, I'm not fun. Well, then be drawn to fun people. Like so I know like with self-management, we talked about finances.
Right.
I wasn't managing my finances. I saw that you were good at managing finances.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to go be around him. I'm going to ask him how he thinks about things. I had to ask him so many questions to get in his brain. Like, what do you feel about money? Because it was so different. It was a different normal than me. And I was wanting to glean from that and become more like that.
Yep.
And it did. It rubbed off. I have a much better, every year I get more and more in line with the way that you process about finances. Yep. And so I think that if you're like, I don't know how to have fun, well, be around people that are fun and that stretch you in fun. Yeah. It's part of the reason we look at green lights is also looking at like, these are ways to engage growth for you too. Fun is valuable because people are not stuck in their heads the whole time and they're living life.
Yeah.
They're living.
Don't need no stick in the muds.
Don't need no stick in the mud.
And people who are engaging fun
I've been a stick in the mud, so there's no judgment.
Yeah, you have. So
That's true.
The people who engage fun also are engaging a piece of their childlike wonder.
Yes.
Part of the full, to me, a piece of the word wholeness or defining wholeness is when we've re-engaged our childlike wonder. You know that there's a wholeness that's happening in the human condition when we've gotten out from under the burdens of what we call adult life and allowed ourselves to be explorers, adventurers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking...
And if you want to really go on a journey of reconnecting with your childlike wonder, you'll want to reach out to stumblconsulting.com and get The Tree of Life by Justin Stumball.
Oh, look at you. Doing plugs just like me.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun is such a good thing because it buoys hope in the midst of hard things. And I know for me, I've had to learn to grow the muscle of fun because I used to have such depression and being around people with childlike wonder. Honestly, for me, fun was vulnerable when I started because it was so not my personality. So I remember being around you, and when we were on a date one day, I was in a bad mood and we had to go to King Soopers or whatever the grocery store was called. And you just like swept me up and was like singing and dancing through the whole grocery store, which I was like, this is crazy. I don't know what's happening. But for me, it was so vulnerable to step out of my comfort zones, do silly voices. All of that was so outside of my zone. But the more that I was around people who were fun and they had to be fun and safe, because I'd grown up with people who were fun and critical.
Right.
And that did not pull it out of me. But when I had fun and kind, empathetic, like people who weren't judgmental, it enabled me to thrive. And so that's one of the green lights I look for in relationships. Can you be more of yourself?
Yeah.
When you're around them.
So with these 12 green lights combined, you are a mecha human being. The perfect human.
Yeah. We just told you how to be perfect. For all of you that can't reach that goal, we made the Compassion Project. I'm joking.
That's hysterical.
So we would love to have you guys share this, rate, review it. It helps it so much. If you want to get a hold of our products, Stumble Consulting, STUMVOLL consulting.com is where you can find it.
Yeah. So if you got affected by this, or you feel like there are people who need to hear about some green lights, pass it along on social media. Tag us at Justin Stumball, at Abi Stumball.
We appreciate every time you guys do that.
We feel so loved when we hear how you guys were affected. It means the world to us. We don't always respond to stuff because we have so many messages, but we go through all of them like, oh my gosh, this is incredible what they said. So thank you for being willing to share that feedback with us.
But sometimes they do get lost in one of my boxes and then I don't see them.
Oh, the request folders. Yeah.
I hate that
sometimes
folder.
open those up and be like, oh my gosh, I forgot to check this.
Or somebody will have tagged us, but then it'll have been gone and I have no idea what it said. So in case I didn't respond, it might be Instagram's fault.
Yeah. Stinking Instagram. Yeah. Pass the
Pour
buck.
some
Blame.
sugar on me. That's how I thought we did it.
I'm going to dump sugar on you from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Powdered sugar. And then I'm going to eat you like a treat.
Gross. That sounds so gross. Bye.
Bye now.